Welcome to the Doherty Water for Food podcast. Since 2010, the Doherty Water for Food Global Institute at the University of Nebraska has worked toward one goal, a food and water secure world. One in which global food security is ensured without compromising the use of water to meet other essential human and environmental needs. It's a daunting vision, but one that is vitally important. This podcast amplifies the voices of those making waves in this space. We hope you enjoy today's episode.
Welcome to the Water for Food podcast. My name is Ariana Elnis, and today we're talking about a really innovative program that brings hands-on learning and water quality to high schools all across the state of Nebraska called Know Your Well. I'm here today with Sara Brock-Contreras, a PhD student at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, working on the Know Your Well project. Sara, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So before we get into the details of the program, could you start by telling us a little bit about your background and what led you to this work?
I sure can. I am a Nebraska person born and raised. I went to Drake University and graduated in 2015 with degrees in biology and English. I really fell in love with water when I was taking a limnology class. I fell in love with the science of water, which just so happened to be the last semester of my senior year in undergrad. And then I left water for a period of time. I went and I taught English in China in a small town north of Beijing by about 3 hours. And there was a really beautiful but really gross river that ran through the town. And water quality, of course, is a major concern in China. So while I left the science of water, it didn't necessarily leave my mind. And when I was coming back to the States after doing that year teaching, I found a position as an intern and then later a program manager with the Groundwater Foundation, which was a Nebraska-based nonprofit and is now underneath the National Groundwater Association and does groundwater-specific education for kids, for the general public, for industry professionals and scientists, and teaches people not only what groundwater is, but also how to teach others about groundwater. And after a few years of that, I thought, what's the next challenge? And that just happened to be grad school. And in the spring of 2022, I started as a master's student and then moved up to be a PhD student under Dr. Daniel Snow at the Water Sciences Lab. And he is the one who was facilitating the program, and he's the one who said, yes, I need a grad student, help me run this program. And it was already in line with things I was already interested in. So that was a natural progression.
And so can you tell us a little bit about the Know Your Well program?
Yeah, so the Know Your Well program started in 2017 before I came on. It was, to my knowledge, a program that was brought to Nebraska, or rather resituated for Nebraska, by Chittaranjan Ray, who's the director of the Nebraska Water Center. He did a very similar program in another state where they contacted well owners and they did domestic well water testing, and they looked around for potential contaminant sources for general land use. And domestic water wells are really vulnerable and also really understudied and underrepresented in the sciences. So he brought this program that he'd done successfully in another state to Nebraska. And Dan, at the same time, was wanting to get involved with something to do with youth education and bringing students into the geosciences. That was a really important thing. And so this program that had been done with adults in another state merged with Dan's desire to work with kids, and the Know Your Well program as it existed in 2017, funded by the Nebraska Environmental Trust, was born. Essentially what this program did was it went from school to school. It provided all the materials, training, equipment, general support for water testing and content knowledge, all that stuff. It provided it to schools, And the schools would then find domestic wells in their area, whether they're registered under the Department of Natural Resources or whether they were unregistered wells. They would collect water samples. They would run classroom chemistry kits, commercially available, in their classroom and share that data to the research team. And also they would collect duplicate samples of the water, send that to the water sciences lab, and the water sciences lab would run a lot of those same kits to quality control for the results that the students generated. But they would also run tests for things that students couldn't test for, things like heavy metals, like arsenic or uranium or selenium, things that Nebraska has a lot of geogenic contaminants in our soil, but those aren't things that you can test for in a commercial kit. So they would run all those. They would generate well owner reports. They would send them back to the students. The students would get to compare the classroom lab chemistry to the professional lab chemistry, compare the methods, why somebody would choose to use one method over another, and what are the benefits and cons of both. And then they would share those well owner reports to the well owners themselves. So the well owners got something out of it. So it was a learning activity. It was a citizen science data activity. And it was a great way to reach out to well owners who may not have ever interacted with the university system or may not have ever had their well tested. So that started in 2017. The initial phase of the program, as it was funded by NET, was from 2017 to 2019. The program was awarded another NET grant from 2019 to 2021. And then because of the pandemic, it was extended to 2022. And that phase of the program was specifically to recruit 4 or 5 schools to know your well who are located within the Bazille groundwater management area, which is an area in Nebraska that is known for exceptionally high nitrate levels, easily 6, 7, 8 times the drinking water health standard of 10 milligrams per liter, and to follow them over time. So the first project went from school to school over the course of a couple years, and this project was looking at 4 to 5 schools over 3 years, and they would regularly go back to collect the same wells. The newest iteration and the current version of the program is a blend of those two. We're actively trying to recruit new schools to the program. We'd love to see this kind of citizen science, participatory science engagement with a real science project in classrooms, but we'd also like to see that sustained in a school and passed down where students can become experts, where they can become mentors to other students. And so those grants from the Nebraska Department of Water, Environment, and Energy, from I believe it was another NET grant, and a EPA Environmental Education Region 7 grant. Those were awarded in 2022 and 2023. And that's what we've been doing, is really building up a lot of the materials and the infrastructure so that teachers can not only take the program into their classroom and do it, but they can keep doing it from year to year to year, and identifying trends and building relationships with the people that they sample from.
That's so great and so cool. So what are the main, gaps that the program fills, and there is so much that goes on. What are the key partnerships that are needed to fulfill the program?
Yeah, those are really great questions. Participatory science, because it can be interdisciplinary, fits really well with water science projects, because water quality testing, understanding of basic hydrological concepts, that can be worked into a chemistry class, a physics class, if you're talking about things like flow velocity, a natural resources class, a vocational agriculture class. The Know Your Well program can really adapt to the teacher and what they need, and our curriculum, which is modular, is built that way. So we have a core curriculum of 3 lessons that really is the content lesson where we talk about just basic things like what is groundwater, what are wells, and what is the Know Your Well program. There's a water collection and sampling lesson, and there's a Know Your Well chemistry lesson. And then there's supplemental curriculums that support the core Know Your Well curriculum that really can be used by any teacher who wants to adopt the Know Your Well program for their classroom specific standards. A lot of the current educational pedagogy with national and also state-specific science standards is using phenomena-based learning. So finding a visual phenomena or finding a news article that students can generate questions about and creating place-based learning opportunities where they can really connect what they're learning to something that they can experience out and every day. Especially with science standards, the current trend is to show people that every day you do science, every day you take in information and you make decisions based off of it. And that's what Know Your Well does specifically for geoscience and hydrogeology. We absolutely could not do this without our local partners. I am but one person, but one grad student who's trying to do all of my coursework and my research and graduate. But this program is way more than one grad student. It is connections from the university to local experts, such as the natural resources districts, who really have a great handle on what's going on with water, water quality, water quantity related concerns and management programs and potential solutions if there are problems found. They are the local experts and resource supporters. We've also connected with health departments and health districts who, again, their primary focus is human health, and what we drink is going to impact people's health, especially vulnerable populations, and people can't necessarily afford to have their water tested all the time. So they're looking for ways to increase testing and increase outreach and awareness. We've also partnered with four-year colleges. There, I believe, was a study or a projection done by a water research organization, and they found that the water industry was going to be short, upwards of 150,000 jobs within the next few years. So how do you recruit more people into the water industry, whether it's the sciences or whether it's some kind of apprenticeship? How do you show people that water is a career? So we absolutely cannot do it without those partnerships. And then those partnerships to local schools, it just opens up another avenue for people who have questions. The well owners, if they have questions, they can go to these other people. They're accessible now. There's a clear pathway from well owner to school to expert, whoever they are, whether it's the university or whether it's one of our other partners. It's now an established pathway, and they don't necessarily have to search through the thousands of results on Google. Who should I talk to about what my water quality is in my well? We now have a list. They have an avenue to do that.
That's awesome. So what are some of the outcomes you've seen from that, or what sorts of conversations has that sparked?
So my current study is actually focused on the research outcomes of participating in a water quality participatory science project as a student or as a teacher. Without having fully completed that study yet and having ready to go results, just in general conversations with students and with teachers, there's a lot more awareness of the chemicals that they have in their classroom, the chemicals that they have in their garage, how easily they can enter the ecosystem, how easily they can enter the water system, and they are aware of it, and now they're prepared to ask the questions of what do I do to protect it? Who do I need to contact to remediate this problem? So there's a lot more awareness. I think also a unique part of participating in quote unquote real science as a student is that they are empowered with the responsibility of data management and scientific communication. And that means that they feel more empowered to be protective of the accuracy and the quality of the stuff that they produce. They feel encouraged to ask questions or take leadership roles over directing newer students. They feel comfortable reminding each other of, basic lab safety or protocol steps. And they feel comfortable approaching scientists when they ask questions. One of the biggest things that I stress when I'm going into a school and introducing Know Your Well for the first time, the first thing that they have to do, we ask them to do, is to do a pre-well information survey. So they're supposed to either find some information online through the groundwater well registry, or they're supposed to ask the well owners questions about when the well was built, the diameter of the well casing, a lot of history questions or land use questions or water quality and aesthetic questions that could inform us if something's a problem down the line, where that problem might be coming from. Those answers are not easily available sometimes. And students who are used to filling out a lab book where everything is known, because the lab has been done a million times and was created so that the answers were very clear, they can get a little flustered when an answer isn't there or when the information is presented in a way that's new or unexpected. And so one of the things I say is, one, it's okay not to know. You need to look for it. You need to ask the questions. But if the answer isn't there, it's okay not to know. And I think for some of them, that's the first time that they hear that. And they look at their teacher and they look at me and I'm like, yeah, I promise it's okay not to know. And then they set to work and they're like, unknown? And they circle the unknown and then they check to make sure I'm okay with the unknown box being circled or being checked. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. If you really can't find it, if you've called me over, if you've called your teacher over, it's okay not to know something. That's what science is I don't know it, so I'm going to go find it out. And that, I think, is a really important takeaway for students. The scientific process is there to guide you, but there's no one right way to get through it. Science is messy. It comes in a bunch of different forms.
I don't know if you have an anecdote about like a student reaction that surprised you or where the science clicked for someone.
So in talking to some of my teachers and catching up on the next year doing the program, what do they want to do? How are they structuring the program? Because Know Your Well can fit into a variety of different classroom structures as well as a variety of different disciplines. One of my teachers is from a smaller rural school, and a lot of the students are involved in the plays. And so there are whole days where a bunch of students will just take off in the middle of the day to do a play rehearsal. And the students who aren't in that are usually the students who are maybe not as academically gifted. So, sometimes academics is just not where a person's strengths lie. Sometimes those students, don't have time for extracurricular activities, and they need to work, and, they can't do some of the fun extracurriculars. So to say it kind of lightly, she kind of takes the leftovers, the students who are not involved in the one acts. And these are, again, not students who would otherwise be involved in an activity. One of these students was very, very quiet. He was kind of a big guy, but he was very quiet and he observed everything. And the first day that I was going through the project and going through the steps on how to collect the samples, he would watch everything, he participated, he did a little bit of this, he did a little bit of that. But generally, that first day of me teaching is me walking the kids step by step. It's a lot of me talking and them doing. The next day, I don't often get to come back on subsequent sampling days. I was there just to provide support. And this student who was so quiet from the get-go, he was helping divide the students into sampling group and site assessment group. He was reminding students to put on gloves and other PPE and how long they needed to run the hose for so that we could actually test the groundwater. They were asking him questions. You could tell he had a lot of pride, especially when we got to his house. We tested his well particularly. He showed them all around. He's like, this is where my septic system is. This is our nearest barnyard pasture, some other major land use features. He knew what he was doing, and he was very, very confident. And I would not have guessed that from my first impression that day. And I think it just goes to show that this kind of project can be really accessible even to the students who aren't in every single curricular activity, who aren't trying to add things to their resume. This is a program that anybody can do at any level. There's something for them. And science and leadership and stewardship can play a role in their lives, whatever they decide to go on with. Another student actually did choose her major. She decided to go to a college and choose geology as a major because of her experience with the Know Your Well program. And that's another huge win. That's a geoscience specific win. But it's not always content and it's not always social skills. Projects like this invite a mix of both, and students have the opportunity to explore improvement in their science knowledge and in the soft skills that they'll need just to be a human in society who's a contributing member.
I love that. So how do you see the program evolving over the next several years? Do you see it expanding to other states?
Schools? So we're in the process of coordinating with some other states that have expressed interest in the program. I would love to see this go to other states. We have connections also in another country. I would love to see this expand to another country if they want to adapt it. I think a lot of people are really interested in the program because it is very complex. A lot of citizen science projects, by necessity, are a little bit more simple. They use the test strips. They have a more straightforward process of submitting data or requesting to be a participant. And I think that's absolutely great. I think Know Your Well distinguishes itself in our complexity, which sometimes makes it hard for me in terms of how many supplies we order and keeping track of the different numbers of schools and keeping track of samples as they progress through the water sciences lab. That part is tricky, but I think because of the complexity, a lot of other institutions can be really interested in adopting this program for their own concerns. So I'd like to see it go to other states beyond just Nebraska, which has a lot of ag and geogenic contaminants. Another way that I would like to see the program evolve is I would like to connect more with utilities. I think, again, bringing attention back to the declining workforce in the water industry, I think this is a really great opportunity to just present water as a fun, get out of classroom, you can do science and it can be fun opportunity. And I really think that utilities could use it as a recruitment tool. I think it would be great to partner with them because they are always going to be there, so they could always support a school that can and continue that relationship. And then again, I think it would just build more trust between the university, between utilities or other experts and the school. It would just establish another great pathway.
Anything else you would like to leave our audiences with about the Know Your Well program or why it matters to you personally?
The Know Your Well program is a very unique and interdisciplinary program. I think the longer that these types of water quality-based participatory science programs are around, the more meaningful they are, not just because of the data trends that they produce, although those are certainly meaningful, and not just because of an increasing number in people that they reach out to, although again, that is important. These programs are just really important for reminding individuals that science is accessible and that they can access the tools that they need to make their decisions. I think sometimes, especially in academia, there's a whole world of knowledge, and finding exactly what you want is difficult. And so a neat little program packaged up like this is a really great way to connect people to the tools that they can use to make key decisions about their health, about their farming practice, about their educational goals, and they can share that also with others. And I think just citizen science programs in general really help increase the equity of science.
Yeah, totally agree. That is all I have, but thank you so much, Sara, for sharing your insights and for all of the work that you're doing to grow the Know Your Well program and to inspire the next generation of water stewards.
Thanks for joining us this time on the Doherty Water for Food podcast. Make sure to visit our website, waterforfood.nebraska.edu, to view show notes or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes.